What's up, YouTube? This is Guy, and today we have something a little bit different on the review table today. We're checking out the Seiko Special Edition PADI Diver watch, reference SUN065. I say this is a little bit different, not because it's a special edition PADI watch. There's a number of those different variations out there on the market. This is a little bit different because it is a kinetic caliber 5M85 movement, and for me, it's the first kinetic watch that I have had the opportunity to spend any time with. I do want to thank the viewer that loaned this to me very much. I really appreciate it when any of you guys that support the channel and like what I'm doing offer to give me watches to review on loan. It really means a lot to me. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into this piece right here and talk a little bit about it. First things first, I want to quickly go over the dimensions because that is one notable thing about this watch. It is very large, very large. Case diameter, not including the crown and the power reserve indicator pusher, looking at 47.5 millimeters. We have a case thickness of 15 millimeters. The lug width on this guy is 24 millimeters, which is pretty wide in my experience. And the overall lug-to-lug from the top to bottom of this watch comes in at 51 millimeters, give or take, on my calipers. Again, this runs on a kinetic movement, and I had no experience with kinetic watches prior to getting this on loan. So this was a bit of a learning process for me, and it's pretty interesting. First things first, it works kind of like a hybrid between an automatic movement and a battery-powered quartz movement. On the inside of the case, and we don't have a see-through case back, so we can't see it, but inside the case there is a spinning or oscillating rotor, much like we would have in our automatic wristwatches. That spinning is what generates the power that I guess for lack of a better word, what powers this movement. The difference is that rotor isn't winding up any sort of spring mechanisms. It generates an electrical charge that powers up the battery in this watch. Now, this watch doesn't use a typical or traditional style battery. It uses some sort of power cell that they claim never needs replacement. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, that is what they say, and having no experience with these watches, no significant background with them, I'm a little dubious of saying that that would never ever need to be replaced. But that's what they claim, so that's the information I'm going to relay to you. They claim that you will never need to replace the power cell in a kinetic in their kinetic watches. So yeah, whatever. It is what it is, I suppose. Now, the power reserve on this watch lasts 6 months when fully charged, which is pretty typical in my experience with solar charged watches from Seiko. They're almost always a 6-month power reserve once fully charged. This does, like I said, have a power reserve indicator. This pusher up at the top right, it does have a screw-down functionality so that you don't accidentally actuate it, particularly when you're underwater. I'm sure that pushing the button underwater would risk the watch of having water intrusion. So you unscrew the pusher, and it's very tight, and my fingers are maybe a little bit slick. But once you get that seal broken, you unscrew it. Now, the way that you use this power reserve indicator, they suggest, is you wait until the second hand is at the 12 o'clock position before you actuate the button. And the reason is it's just easier to read it once you get the power reserve results. So there it goes to the 12 o'clock position, and we push the button and it jumps up to, in this case, about the 20-second mark. Now, once time catches back up, the second hand will just continue to run. You don't have to do anything else. So what does it mean when the second hand goes up to this position here at the 20-second mark? Well, according to the manual, the power reserve indicator tells you how much power it has in this way. If the second hand were to go to the 5-second mark, that would mean that you have approximately 1 day's worth of power. If it were to jump up to the 10-second mark, you would have about a week's worth of power. At the 20-second mark, like we got in this result, you have approximately 30 days or a month, give or take, of power reserve left. And if it had jumped all the way up to the 30-second mark, that would mean that it's fully charged with your full 6-month power reserve. Now, How do you charge it up? Well, you charge it up, well, first let's screw down this pusher. You charge it up like you would a normal automatic watch. You hold the watch in your hand and you swing it back and forth. Now, first thing I want to point out is when you're swinging this around, and even when it's on your wrist, the rotor inside there, the oscillating rotor, is quite heavy and a little bit noisy. So you really feel it moving, and you can even hear it a little bit. As a matter of fact, I'm going to hold the watch up to my microphone and give it a few shakes. I want to see if it will pick up so that you guys can hear just how loud it is. I don't know if that's picking up on my mic, but I'm shaking the watch back and forth right by it. And I mean, I can hear it, clear as day. I guess we'll find out after I edit this video if that actually worked or not. But yeah, it is quite loud. If you're wearing this watch on your wrist and you move your hand around at all, you can hear it. Now, it's not a problem. It's not like it's so loud that everybody around you is going to be able to hear it. You're aware of it. Whereas on most automatic watches, I'm not aware of the oscillating weight, the rotor inside of the case spinning around at all. So, just a point that I wanted to make about this particular movement. So let's talk about charging it up. If you're swinging it back and forth like that to charge it up, what the manual says is that about 250 swings of the watch gives you 1 day's worth of power reserve or charge. Now let's imagine you were swinging it about twice per second back and forth. How long would it take to get a full charge? I did the math on it, and it's pretty staggering. It would take about 45,000 swings, which if you divide that all out, comes to be just a little over 6 hours. It would take a little over 6 hours of swinging this watch back and forth like this in order to get a full and complete charge. Of course, nobody in their right mind would ever do that. You'd probably swing it back and forth for about 2 or 3 minutes at most if it were completely dead. Put it on your wrist and just let the action of your body and your movement charge it up the rest of the way. If you wear it regularly, I suspect you'll never have any issue with the power reserve not staying fully charged. But keep in mind that if it is dead and you pick it up out of your watch case after not having worn it for a long time, to get it fully charged up takes a little time. That said, I mean, it is, in essence, after all of that, just a quartz movement. So you get to enjoy all of the inherent benefits of a quartz movement, most notably accuracy. This thing is going to keep good time, probably in the ballpark of plus or minus 15 seconds per month, if I'm not mistaken. That's always a plus, and one of the reasons why I enjoy quartz watches. I like my mechanical and automatic watches a lot as well. Perhaps I like them even more than quartz watches, if I'm being perfectly honest, but I like quartz watches, even these kinetic watches like this, for the inherent accuracy that you get from them. To me, accuracy is kind of important with a wristwatch. That's its whole point in life, is to keep time, and I want it to keep good time. Some of the other basic information about this watch, aside from the movement, let's look at my notes here real quick. So we have the power reserve indicator, which we demonstrated already. The crown is a screw-down crown, not signed, but it's nice, and it's very, very easy to unscrew. The threading on it is excellent, just unscrews and pops right out. We'll talk more about that and what it does in a little bit. We also have on the dial, if we look at this red hand here, that's a GMT hand, so we can keep time in multiple time zones. The way that I have it configured for me right now is the Eastern time zone. It's about 10 to 4, and I also have the GMT set to the Eastern time zone as well, so that I can look down and see that it is almost 1600 hours. Now, you could set your hands to different time zones and keep track of 2 time zones separately. I have no purpose or use for that, so I just set it this way. I find that to be most useful for me. But yeah, that's what the GMT hand is for. To set the GMT hand, you set the time to whatever you want first, and then let's say I was going to, I don't know, the West Coast. You pull the crown out to the first position, and you set the main hands then back however much you want. So now it's 10 to 1 on Pacific time zone, but we can still see that it's almost 1600 hours in the Eastern time zone. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. One thing that is maybe a negative, there's no quick set date. Normally we would pull the crown out to the first position, and that's where we would set the date. That's not how this works. To set the date on this watch, you have to advance the hour hand, and then you'll see the date flip there. So now we're in the AM, now we're in the PM, and you'll see here the date is going to flip again, so on and so forth. So that is how you adjust the date, and you can go back and forward and set the date. Either way, it works just fine. It's just a little bit different than what I'm used to. Maybe that's typical for a GMT watch. This is also, if I'm not mistaken, my first GMT watch. My first Kinetic, my first GMT. All kinds of firsts for me here. Pulling the crown out to the second position obviously is going to hack the movement, and you can set your time. When you set your time, let's say we were going to move it back to be, we'll say 10 minutes to 1. You can see that the GMT hand, it moved with it too. So the GMT hand is set this way. What you have to do is you have to specifically set the GMT hand, and then let's say we wanted to set this GMT to 1700, and then push the crown back in, and then we set our hour hand separately. So that's the functionality of the crown, and again, it is screw down. It's got very nice threading. It's got a very good action for the screw down portion of the crown. Moving along, what else do we got here? We have 200 meter ISO certified water resistance. We have a date complication down between the 4 and 5 o'clock window, or markers rather. I'm not a huge fan of the offset date window like that. This one in particular is a little bit small. It's kind of hard to see. But in general, I don't like an asymmetrically set date. That's just a personal opinion, though. I mean, some people like it, some people don't mind it. I don't prefer it if I had my choice. But it's there and it's functional, so I mean, it's better than not having it, I suppose. Now, of course, this does have Seiko's LumiBrite Luminescence glow-in-the-dark paint on all of the markers and the handset, including the GMT hand. If we look really closely at the GMT hand, we can see that it's skeletonized, but there is a track of LumiBrite going around the outer edge of it. So it's that nice highlighted red paint with the LumiBrite little track there in white going around it. And it works quite well. I'll roll in some video of the LumiBrite in action. It's everything that you would expect from Seiko's LumiBrite. But I was suspicious, how well would we be able to read the GMT hand in particular, because it has such a delicate amount of LumiBrite on it. The answer to that is it's very, very legible. It's not a problem. We also get another upgrade on this that was a bit of a surprise to me. It has a sapphire anti-reflective coated crystal. So not the typical Hardlex crystal that we probably have come to expect on the majority of Seiko's watches, in particular their dive watches, the extremely popular ones. That's a nice upgrade. How anti-reflective is it? I mean, you know, there's my studio light. It's better than most, but of course it gets glare when you're in super, super bright lighting like we have in here. So yeah, keep that in mind, that while it is AR or anti-reflective, it's not like it's not going to eliminate reflections entirely. It is glass or crystal after all. And of course we have a 120 click unidirectional bezel. If we look at this case, you can see that the case sort of shrouds the bezel up at the northwest side and the southeast side. It kind of reminiscent of the Tuna case watches, Seiko's Tuna watches. I don't know if you're familiar with those. It's not exactly like that, but a little reminiscent of it because the case shrouds and sort of hugs the bezel. That said, not an issue as far as using the bezel. You have plenty of real estate on the opposite edges in order to grip the bezel. The action is extremely good. Very easy to rotate the bezel. It's nice and snug. There's not a whole lot of play in it once you set it to where you want it. So let's pretend we were going to set it to the current minute hand. Once it's set, it doesn't wiggle or play. It's very good. It's a great bezel. It's got awesome texturing. It's very, very usable. Now, this watch comes on this rubber strap, and while I like the quality and the material of the strap, I think it's really good. It's very pliable. It's nice and soft. The keeper and the buckle are these really well done stainless steel pieces, signed Seiko on the keeper, signed Seiko on the buckle. The downside to this strap, it is extremely too long for me and my 7-inch wrist. I suspect that that's because it's meant to go over a wetsuit, since it's a true dive watch. and it's going to be a little bit bigger than average. But if you were going to wear this watch on a daily basis on this strap, and you didn't have really, really big wrists, you get a lot of hangover on the tail when it goes through the buckle. Like, it's like this on me. And I'll do a wrist shot here real quick, I suppose, to show you guys what I'm talking about. Let me get my wrist check here, get my Hamilton off, and throw this on so I can show you exactly what it is I'm talking about. I guess you can see the size of the watch too. That'll be useful. It is very large. So let me zoom the camera out and give you this shot. Alright, so there it is on my wrist. You can see all of the extra tail hanging off of the strap. And again, I have a 7-inch wrist. It's not like I have a small, delicate wrist. If I pull the keeper around as far as it will go, even then, there's quite a bit of extra tail flopping over the edge there. It's just, like, never mind the proportions of the watch. We'll talk about that in a second. It's just too long. At least an inch, if not more, too long. I don't know if there's a bracelet for this or a particular model of watch or not. If there is, I'd probably be looking into that as an alternative to this strap, or I'd have to wear it maybe on a NATO strap or something for daily wear. Now, aside from the size of the bracelet being extraordinarily too long for me, this is a huge mammo-jammo-sized watch on my wrist. Very thick. I don't know if I can get a good angle here, like how high it stands up off of my wrist. It takes up a lot of real estate on my arm, basically, is the moral of the story. It's great quality. It's a beautiful looking piece, just way too big for me. So, keep that in mind if you're shopping around for watches, that you're probably going to want to be a dude with like bordering 8-inch wrists or bigger would be my suggestion. I'm going to go ahead and pull this off and zoom back into the close-up view. Now, as far as the rest of the design of the watch, I mean, it is really, really nice. We have this beautiful blue dial, an excellent blue bezel. Of course, we got some dust on the dial here. Let me give it a little wipe. The markers are all applied markers, and I don't know how well this is going to show up on camera. I'm going to get in really close here and tilt the watch. Look at how high those markers stand up off of the dial. It's pretty amazing. I've never seen applied markers that really were that large. And I guess it's fitting. It's a large watch. Why not have large markers? But it's cool. That gives it a whole lot of depth and dimension to the dial just because of how tall those markers are off of the dial. Of course, we have the typical Seiko chapter ring, sloped, angled chapter ring there. Got the red hash marks at the 3, 6, 9, and 12 o'clock positions. That looks great. We also have matching on the inner area, the inner ring, those same red highlights. I like that. It matches up with the GMT hand. It's great design. Of course, we have the aluminum bezel. The blue on the bezel doesn't really match the blue on the dial perfectly. Zoomed in this close, it's apparent. When it's down on your wrist, though, a few feet away from your face, it works. It's good enough. It's just in this lighting, zoomed in so much, it's really much more apparent. What else can we say about this guy? I'll show you the case back. I didn't really talk about that. It's very flat, so at least it doesn't bulge and push it off of your wrist even further, so that's a plus. It's decorated with the Seiko logo, the Tsunami, Prospex. It does say special edition there at the 12 o'clock underneath Seiko. Nice looking case back. It does boast that it's a sapphire crystal, stainless steel, Movement Japan. Good looking case back. Not super decorated or anything, but yeah, I thought I'd give you guys a quick look at that. I think that's more or less everything that I could show you guys about this watch. There's a lot going on here. Quality, very, very, very good. I mean, I can't give it anything but 2 thumbs up in terms of what I assume is going to be the durability, but notably the quality of this watch. It's outstanding. It is just large, very large, and I don't think it's going to work for most people. I don't think it would work for me, but I am really happy to have had the opportunity to check it out, in particular because it's a kinetic, it's got the GMT functionality, there's just a lot of cool stuff going on with it. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them down below. If you're interested in picking this watch up, I will look for the best price on Amazon, and I'll put a link down in the notes below the video. So if you want to pick it up, do it through my affiliate link, and I get a small commission, which I appreciate. Of course, I will also have links to my social media accounts down there. Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, Instagram. If you want to link up with me on any of those social media platforms, that's appreciated as well. Thanks for tuning in. I will be back with another watch review here in the not too distant future. All right, guys, take care. Bye.